name's Samuel Fletcher and I'm currently a fourth year student at the University of Bath studying sport and social science. During this presentation, I'm going to be discussing how the national curriculum requires teachers to employ a range of pedagogical strategies to ensure pupil learning and inclusivity in all aspects of their lessons. I will also be presenting a critical account on how one would approach this task, making recommendations for the enhancement of teacher practice in PE. I will be attaching a lesson plan I have planned in my own time, discussing various pedagogical approaches and techniques which can be applied to enhance pupils' learning. The national curriculum is a set of subjects and standards used by primary and secondary schools, so children learn the same things. It covers what subjects are taught and the standards children should reach in each subject. The national curriculum provides pupils with an introduction to the core knowledge that they need to be educated citizens. It aims to embody rigour and high standards and create coherence in what is taught in schools. More specifically, the national curriculum relating to physical education states, a high-quality physical education curriculum inspires all pupils to succeed and excel in competitive sport and other physically demanding activities. It should provide opportunities for pupils to become physically confident in a way which supports their health and fitness. There are various targets and aims of physical education. Some of these include the development of competence to excel in a broad range of physical activities. Pupils should be physically active for sustained periods of time, engage in competitive sports and activities, and finally, lead healthy, active lifestyles. I will be focusing on Key Stage 4 students due to this being the age range I'm going to teach during the lesson. The national curriculum states specified aims and targets relating to Key Stage 4. Pupils should tackle complex and demanding physical activities and be taught to use and develop a variety of tactics and strategies to overcome opponents in team and individual games, develop their technique and improve their performance in other competitive sports or other physical activities, take part in further outdoor and adventurous activities in a range of environments which present intellectual and physical challenges and which encourage students to work in a team, building on trust and developing skills to solve problems, either individually or as a group. Evaluate their performances compared to previous ones and demonstrate improvement. And finally, continue to take part in competitive sports and activities outside school. During the lesson, I'll be focusing on numerous of these attainment targets / aims to enhance teacher practice and pupil learning and inclusivity. One will teach pupils to use and develop a variety of tactics and strategies to overcome their opponents in a team game, which will be football. I will also aim to make students evaluate their performances compared to previous ones, and hopefully they will demonstrate improvement. Finally, I will make sure all students are engaged in the lesson, which will hopefully have a competitive nature, which will help drive my practice. The sport I'm going to teach during my lesson is going to be football. This is because I can base the session around the aims and attainment targets of PE. The environment I'm going to teach in is going to be based in a secondary school and will last roughly 45 minutes. There will also be 25 to 30 pupils. The group is most likely going to be of mixed ability. There are various pedagogical approaches and theories which can be used to have a positive effect on the lesson. I'm going to go through what I believe are the 5 most important approaches. The first approach I'm going to be discussing is cognition. Cognition refers to the mental activity including thinking, remembering, learning, and using language. When we apply a cognitive approach to learning and teaching, we focus on the understanding of concepts and information. Harris states the individual learner gains environmental data via the senses. These data are processed and organised, thereafter the learner can act on the world. Second on the list is behaviourism. Behaviourism, also known as behaviour psychology, is a theory of learning which states all behaviours are learned through interaction with the environment through a learning process called conditioning. It can also be learning as a result of conditioning. Third is constructivism. Constructivism is a theory in education that recognises the learner's understanding and knowledge based on their own experiences prior to entering school. The theory suggests learners construct knowledge rather than passively just take information. Gale and Steff state, individuals are not possessors of contents or rationales, but rather participate in them. Students would rather learn from dialogue within the environment than the teacher exposition. Fourth is social learning theory. Social learning theory is a theory of learning, process, and social behaviour, which proposes that new behaviours can be acquired by observing and imitating others. Wenger, 2016, states communities of practice are formed by people who engage in a process of collective learning in a shared domain of human endeavour. In a nutshell, communities of practice are people who share a concern or passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. And last but not least, a constraints-led approach. A constraints-led approach is a teaching or coaching method based on the principles of non-linear pedagogy. It advocates a more hands-off approach to a teaching and learning in a physical education. Through the manipulation of certain constraints, different information is presented to the learner. Renshaw, Chappell, Fitzgerald, Davidson, and McFadden state, playing constraint-led games gives the player and coach opportunities to identify current strengths and weaknesses in terms of technical, tactical, mental, or physical factors. Coaches can then design games by manipulating constraints to facilitate the opportunity for the player to explore new ways of overcoming the weaknesses. Now I'll be discussing the lesson plan, which I've created for the Key Stage 4 students, more specifically, Year 11s. I'll be teaching a class of 30 Year 11s on the outside pitch for an hour. The sport I've chosen to focus on for the lesson is football. The objectives of the session are to firstly develop students' use of variety and tactics to overcome the opponent's team, and secondly to improve students' 1 and 2 touch passing. The first task I'm going to set up for the pupils is the 10-metre passing drill. 2 players will be stood 10 metres apart and will attempt to pass the ball to each other, taking 2 touches, 1 to set themselves and 1 to pass. A point is given to the pair if they complete 4 passes in a row. The winner is the first team to 5 points. The pedagogical approach/technique I'll be using for this is behaviourism. Paulo Freire discussed that some pedagogues trust learners like objects, and teachers are just depositing knowledge. However, this would be an effective approach for the task at hand. An example of behaviourism could be when teachers reward their students with a prize. At the end of the task, I will bring a bag of sweets to the winning pair. This will have a positive effect on the pupil's motivation and give them a reason or a will to want to win. I will use the pedagogical approach because it links in with the national curriculum's Key Stage 4 targets and aims, more specifically helping pupils develop their technique and improve their performance. The focus within this drill was improving the pupil's passing technique. The second task I have decided to use in the lessons is the gate game. 5 gates are created with cones. The aim is to either dribble or pass the ball through the gates. There is a time limit of 6 minutes, or the first team to reach 5 goals wins. I will create a 2-minute break between matches to let pupils discuss tactics. During this task, I will use the pedagogical technique constructivism. Constructivism is the theory that suggests learners contrast knowledge rather than passively take information. Newman states, learning is most effective when it is active, interactive, and authentic. As previously mentioned, there will be a 2-minute break in between each game to discuss tactics. During this break, I will advise the students to discuss tactics in order to increase the chances of their team's success. I will use this pedagogical approach because it links in with the national curriculum's Key Stage 4 targets and aims, more specifically to use and develop a variety of tactics and strategies to overcome opponents in a team and individual games. The final task I'm going to complete with the class is going to be a possession game. There are going to be 3 teams of 10 players, 2 teams play at once. A goal is awarded for completing 5 passes in a row. The constraint is players are limited to 3 touches. There is a time limit of 6 minutes, and the first team to score 5 goals wins. During the drill, I will be applying a constraints-led approach. As previously mentioned, the constraint-led approach is a teaching or coaching method based on the principles of non-linear pedagogy. It advocates a more hands-on approach to teaching and learning within physical education. I will be applying performer constraints more specifically as limiting players to 3 touches. I personally believe this approach is very effective because it makes people use their prior knowledge to figure out the solution to the problem at hand. There are various pedagogical strategies, devices, and ideas that could enhance the future practice in physical education. I personally believe that in the near future, most of the physical education teaching will be based around constructivism. Teachers prefer to make the pupils try and figure out the answer rather than just tell them. However, from my own personal experience in physical education, I can personally say I learned knowledge through being taught techniques rather than learning them myself. I understand that people should use their own initiatives, however, being taught a technique rather than trying to teach it themselves is a lot more effective. For example, a teacher showing you how to complete a technique is much more effective than you going and making up a technique, or I suppose they could give you feedback on the technique and how to improve. I also believe a constraint-led approach is very effective when teaching Key Stage 4 students. This is because they have had previous experiences being taught techniques and skills, and therefore they can apply them during team and individual games to achieve success through their own knowledge. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.